Okay, good morning. Um, this time, earlier I was talking about bioethics in the oil and gas industry and how uh, distinct or how the difference between bioethics in the medical sciences and bioethics in the industry as can be seen in the industry. Now this time, I'll be talking about how bioethics can also be manifested or seen in the academe or in the field of education, where we need to look into the pedagogy of teaching research in the university and in schools. So my topic for this morning will be about strengthening the culture of classroom-based research in schools. Now, we know that as we guide students in the university in the conduct of researches, we have to make them aware that there are people who are going to be affected in the conduct of researches, especially those researchers who will be involving human subjects. And so, I would like to focus also on being able to strengthen the culture of research, because I know that all over the world we are all wanting to do research, because the growth and development not only of people but everything around us is based on research activities. And so my sharing for this morning will be more on how schools are going to look into the conduct of researches and how culture of research can be developed among students in schools and universities. And I believe that the process of providing information on what amount of responsibility we have in the process of guiding students in the field of research. The outline of my presentation would include the culture of research, research productivity in basic education, because I also believe that learning can start from a very, very young age. So awareness on the responsibility in the conduct of research should start at a very young age. It also includes the influential factors in the culture of research, aims of action research, the central tenets of action research, the 4 basic steps in the action research, and utilization of action researches in the classroom. So to start with, a culture of research requires involvement of not only of faculty but of the administration, of the leaders who are the ones who will support and provide resources for the teachers to be able to enhance their capability in guiding students in the university and in schools. Children are made aware through the teachers that are providing them with information, and everything that is given are always retained in the minds of children. But then, without the resources available and without the support of the administration, the faculty may not be motivated to really engage themselves in doing actual research so that they can share it with the rest of the faculty and the clients who are their students. Institutions wishing to develop a culture of research must allocate significant resources. We know that large universities or those universities, the top 10 universities around the world, have spent so much and have provided enough resources, not only trained people, not only capable people, but those who are able to invest into research have also assisted industry and provided the whole world with economic development because of the investment that they've had in research activities. And a developing culture of research requires open and collaborative personal relationships among faculty members, not only within the university where they are affiliated, but collaborative activities with other universities, because that is how they are able to cross-fertilize each other by working together with other people from other parts of the world. So, to implement cultural change, administrators must be prepared to tailor resource allocations based on faculty members' current motivations and abilities. Now, there might be faculty members within the universities and schools who are advanced in terms of movement in research activities, but some may not be able to pursue what they have in their minds and what motivations they may have without the support of the administration. So a culture of research may take years to develop, which we have seen from those universities which are the research universities. And of course, we know that, and we are aware that a lot of universities are aiming towards becoming a research university. But some are slowly working towards it, and some are stagnating. Maybe because people are not motivated to do research, the actual research activities, where they can also share their experiences to the students. So plans for a culture of research should include consideration of student involvement as well. Research productivity in basic education can only be seen if the leaders and the faculty are also exposed or are given the chance to disseminate whatever information they have discovered, whatever new knowledge they have discovered, not only in their classrooms but also anywhere around the world. Because whatever changes they may have because of the new discoveries of new knowledge that they have seen may be used, may be true in their own workplace, but can also be used by other people in other parts of the world. So a culture of research provides supportive context in which research is uniformly expected, discussed, produced, and valued. Now, and research can only be valued if it's disseminated, and if people are able to make use of whatever data. Now, in the conduct of research, the data that has been used or analyzed or interpreted and made use in whatever objective they have can also be used by other people in other ways. So it's not only through the actual research that is being done where data can be used, but other people may make use of such data anywhere around the world. That is the reason why dissemination is very important. Institutions and units that have traditionally emphasized effective faculty contact with students as a criterion for success are looking toward development cultures of research and increased faculty research production. So even faculty members or teachers in basic education should be also given the chance to produce, even starting with actual researches within the classroom that can improve their teaching styles, their teaching strategies, and how they can come up with solutions to problems within the teaching, within their teaching activities. So the importance of a research culture can be manifested through the institutional reputation, because it is through the results and the utilization of actual research activities that can improve or can make people aware that an institution has contributed a lot, not only through the education of children within the institution, but through the utilization of such researches by other institutions and agencies. So it increases the development of research culture, increases in research productivity, and are connected with an increasingly favorable reputation and faculty advancement. The productive environment of institutional activities it may also involve institutional collegiality, achievement of long-term goals, which can really be seen by the changes that happens within the institution, and how the institution can already move forward towards economic advancement of a nation, of the nation where they are located. It may also involve and improve leadership characteristics, because as you progress from the kind of activities that you have been doing, as you move towards coming up with improvements not only in science but in everything that you do, you are able to develop a sense of mentoring with other faculty members. Successful institutions provide significant support to faculty through their research efforts. Now, what are the influential factors for a culture of research to be developed? Number one, effective leadership and clear goals. Because if an institution have a clear direction of what they want to contribute towards the improvement or towards nation building or towards economic development, then it may also be able to guide everybody within the institution. So in the process of guiding and in the process of leading people in achieving the clear goals of the institution or the direction of the institution, it should not be forgotten that ethics is a very important part of it, so that in everything that is going to be done in the conduct of research, it should start with ethical considerations, since the children or even the students, the more mature students, graduate school students for instance, before they are going to continue working on research activities, they have to have ethical clearance, because it requires consideration on how people are affected by the conduct of research activities. And leaders who are the ones trying to mentor the faculty members should also be aware of the responsibility, the amount of responsibility that goes with any research activity. So another influential factor is the training and support. The training and support is very important to be able to enhance the capability of the faculty to do research. And if they are so contained within the institution where they are, I do believe that they have a very limited reach and they have a very limited understanding of whatever is going to be affected with the kind of research activity that they are going to do. Although it was mentioned earlier in the discussion in class, it was mentioned that evil comes from advancement in technology, maybe because the kind of acceptance or the kind of motivation or intention to do research may be actually guided by the wrong intentions. And so leadership and mentoring is very important so that people are able to really internalize the amount of responsibility that they should have in order to be able to achieve whatever goals they may have in conducting researches. Continuing education courses may be provided so that the faculty will be able to enhance their capability and the capacity and their appreciation of what research is all about. Of course, funding is another, because without funds you cannot move. It's a very important source of motivation for people to also change venues or change environments in the process of conducting researches. A terminal degree attainment support is also another factor. Now, what are the challenges? Challenges are always present. In everything that we do, there are always challenges, and it's how we accept and how we adapt to it that is very important. Of course, faculty motivation and ability can be a challenge, because if people are not aware of how they can how do you call that? How they can survive in coming up with solutions to the challenges that they're going to encounter. No, to implement cultural change, administrators must be prepared to tailor solutions to faculty members' current motivations and abilities. Some people may not be very interested in doing research, but once they are given the chance to have the experience, they are really able to appreciate the kind of work or the very tedious task that they have to face. Now, the teacher as a researcher, as we look into the classroom, no, if we start applying research results of research in the classroom, we look into action researches. Now, the aim of conventional research is generally to answer the question, what is happening here? Whereas the aim of action research is to answer the question, how can I improve what is happening here? So, as we try to guide our students and children in basic education, for example, by utilizing the results of research activities within the classroom, in classroom management, for example, it can be felt by the students. No, the students will be able to feel the improvement in the changes that the teacher will be able to implement within the classroom. And so, as we try to improve our teaching capabilities, according to David Colgan, managers are increasingly engaging in action research projects in their own organizations, since issues of organizational concern such as systems improvement, organizational learning, and the management of change are suitable subjects for action research. So it's not only in the academe that action researches are actually being used. In any type of activity, we can, in any profession or in any occupation, action researches can be done. in order to be able to come up with immediate solutions to problems. So there will be less recurring problems if action researches are actually conducted from time to time. Coughlin supports his claim by stating that these are suitable projects mainly because these are real events which must be managed in real time. So everything that, every challenge within the occupation or within the career or within the activity in any type of industry or environment, if it's managed real time, solutions and improvements can be done. These also provide opportunities for both effective action and learning, and they can contribute to the development of a theory of what really goes on in organizations. So the central tenets of action research. What are the central tenets? Number one, it involves a change experiments on real problems in social systems. It focuses on particular problem and seeks to provide assistance to the client system. So even in the practice of human resource management, for instance, it is very difficult to just experiment on something because people are not doing their jobs as we expected. We cannot just do an experiment and implement something, for example, a policy that can improve the effectiveness of people in their jobs. But we have to do research to be able to make sure that once we implement the policy, it is really something that could improve the way people are able to work and improve in their in the effectiveness and productivity. So it involves iterative cycles of identifying a problem, planning, and evaluating. Of course, if you plan, there is also a need to evaluate whether your plan has really done something good. As you implement your plan, as you is called plan, do, and plan, do, act. So as you try to continue implementing your plan, you also need to constantly evaluate whether it has really done something and improved whatever you have started. Another is that the intended change in an action research involves re-education. What is meant by re-education? Going back to where you started and being able to make a follow-up of what has been learned and what can be relearned. Another is it challenges the status quo from a participant perspective, because a participant may, for example, join a training activity in research with a very negative perspective of things, but it is in the process of making such a participant understand and making him realize what changes does he need to do in the process of conducting action researches or conducting research activity in general. Another is it seeks to contribute simultaneously to basic knowledge in social science and to social action in everyday life. Now, as we try to reach out to students, as we try to make them understand and appreciate research activities, we also have to let them see how relationships are considered in the process of conducting research activities. It's not just being able to achieve the goal of discovering something, but in the process of discovering new things, relationships are developed. And so, the management of such relationships and sustainability of such relationships is a very important aspect in the teamwork that is going to happen, especially in collaborative researches. Another is it seeks to contribute simultaneously to basic knowledge That was what I have mentioned, that in everyday life, you have to see the results of research, but of course, considering the ethical practices that we have to have in order to achieve our goals. So why do action research? It is in order to reflect more deeply and systematically on teaching practices. As applied to education, especially to basic education, we need to look into how the teaching practices can be improved every day, just to be able to reach out to children who are not, who may not be very interested to learn because they are wanting to do other things. Especially now with the advent of technology, there is so much to do that we sometimes do not want to have the traditional way of learning. But we just have to consider that technology is just a tool. It cannot replace people. Despite the coming in of artificial intelligence, we still have to look into how classroom-based education can be improved. So in evaluating the effect of actions and practices and to seek opportunities to improve teaching. So the basic steps, of course we know that what we have to have: constructing, planning, taking action, and evaluating action. So we have to make sure that the project is done and is necessary and is desirable, because if people don't understand why it is going to be conducted, then it is going to be useless. Of course, planning is very important, because in the process of conducting the research activities, knowing what methods to use in order to, and what approaches to use in order to be able to address the gap that we have seen in any activity, in any research activity, then that is very important. Now, there is a need to develop a strategy, and that's why in this particular part of my sharing, I would like to point out that there is a need to outline specific activities needed to solve whatever problems that you need to address. No? If there is a gap in knowledge that you want to fill in, then you have to have the specific outline of activities that you need to do, and be able to identify what tools to use, so that it allows people who are involved in the conduct of such projects or in the conduct of such researches, it allows people to understand how you can move on and be able to achieve whatever goal and whatever problem you want solved. You have to think, pair, share. No? You have to list problems down, identify strategies to solve the problems, and compare and discuss alternative solutions. Now, in this particular process, comparing and discussing alternative solutions, there is really a need to go into exchange of ideas, because by being able to assess which alternative can be the best solution to the problem, there is a need to really discuss thoroughly among those who are involved in the conduct of the study. So that's why you have to jointly develop the best solution. You need to create a timeline, because when you carry out an activity, or when you conduct researches, you can reasonably accomplish the steps by careful planning. So it is important that you plan the project so that resources are available, the tools are available, and everything. needed in order to be able to solve such problems. So gather the resources you identified in your plan, make sure that the materials will be available when you need them, and if needed, schedule a time with those that can provide assistance. Now, of course, based on my experience, I have done researches which really needed a lot of help from so many people, and I have really experienced how it is to seek help and be given the assistance that is needed. So it's just a matter of knowing how to negotiate, knowing how to source out the help that you need in the process of conducting the research activities. If needed, you need to be very resourceful. So the evidence of success, how will you measure success? How will you measure that you are able to achieve your goals? How will you know that you have succeeded? You have to identify the evidence to be used for success, and that is the assessment system and the evaluation system. You should know whether you have improved on your strategy, if the students have really improved in the way they are able to learn, and the way they are able to appreciate what you have, what changes you have done, and the way you have tried to mentor and teach them. And this is the process in the action research cycle. First, you have to identify the problem, then gather the data, interpret and act on your evidence. Of course, evaluate results through the assessment process, and go into the next steps. Of course, if you have noticed, the arrow goes back to being able to identify the problem, because if you are able to see that there's an improvement and you have seen the changes in the constituent and the clients that you intend to utilize, whatever new discoveries you have made, then it goes back to identifying other problems that can be provided with solutions. So I hope I have given something. I have shared a little of what I have experienced, and I think this is the last slide that I have. To be able to develop a strategy, you have to outline activities. I think, where are we now? So, there. Those are just pictures that I wanted to share with you. The one in the upper portion, these are the results when I shared my researches in different parts of the world. This one is when I went to Sweden in 2010. This one in Singapore. The other one is in Manila, Pen. The rightmost is this was taken in the Pier House Resort in Key West, Florida, and the other one I am with a Thai researcher and scientist from Poland. He's a psychologist at the same time. He works with special children. And this was taken in Rome, in the American University of Rome, when I did my presentation. And this one was when I gathered my data in Thailand. I went to Univantage Development Center, a research center, trying to conduct studies on the oil palm trees, the growing of oil palm trees. The Univanish company is one of the biggest providers of seedlings around the world for oil palm plantations, oil palm growers. The other one was when I presented a paper in Dalian, China. I was asked to do a paper on finance and IT outsourcing. It was it was the first World IT Outsourcing Summit in Dalian, China. This one was in Atlanta. When I submitted the paper and presented it at Troy University, and this one was in the East-West Center in Hawaii. The last one there, this one I am with an Indonesian scientist, and the guy is a Japanese scientist also doing studies on the oils and gas industry. Okay, and that is all. I hope I have shared something that was important and relevant for you. Thank you.
Can you go back to the cycle, please? The cycle slide.
Okay.
And we open for questions, but I'd like to look at the cycle, please.
Yeah.
Good. So, can you explain in this figure 2, action research cycle, how do we get, for example, involving community engagement in this cycle? Can you give some examples?
Yeah.
And also the relationship of the university as a producing public good research, or for the good of the community, for beneficence.
Okay. In the process of conducting action researches, we know that we intend, we look into the significance of the study. We look into how it can benefit the people and how it can affect the way they improve their lives, right? Because it intends to come up with solutions to problems. But in the process, there may be a need for gathering of data. For example, once you have identified a problem, you know that you need to gather data from people. And so you have to consider how you can protect, like for example, in a case where one did a study on, it was a social science study which involved finding out the poverty situation of one community. And there was one picture taken of a child defecating with along the street, and of course, when they took the picture, it was something that would need consent before they are going to take the picture, right? The parents of the child could have been asked with consent, because it's something that is not a picture of the child doing that along the street. Although it is a picture that intends to let people see that because of the lack of toilets, they are doing it along the streets. That's the purpose. But then it was something that could have been given consent by the parent, that they are going to take a picture of that. So the responsibility of making the decision to take that picture and use it during the presentation is something that will have to be considered. Now, in the process of acting on evidence, we know that whatever we have discovered, we need to disseminate. We need to share to people. Of course, for people to understand how important that the result would be. But then, it would also require the correct line of thinking in the process of deciding whether to say things and not to say things. Because there are, of course, we know that evidence is evidence and we need to disseminate such evidence. But in the process of disseminating, how can the intended beneficiaries of that research may be able to take it and accept whatever the result would be. And also, for example, in my university did a study on the awareness of citizens in the actions taken in public governance. There was one community which really, the results showed that people are not aware of the health programs of the government. They're not aware of the financial management seminars that are provided by the government in order to help small cooperatives, in order to help improve or alleviate poverty. The results showed that the governance was not that good because people are not aware of what they are doing. The funding is there, budget is provided in order to come up with such actions, in order to provide education to people within the community, but they are not aware that it's there. So when we tried to show, of course we presented it first to the highest authority in that community, and then there was a reaction, they were not happy with the result, and they didn't want it disseminated to the rest of the members of the governance. So we said, what is the purpose of having this if we are not going to share it with the others? So that they would know that they are not really reaching out to the beneficiaries of the programs. Maybe they are just, of course the authorities would think that they are able to really reach out, but because of that result, they were made aware that the beneficiaries are not really reached through the programs that they are providing. And so, we were now in a dilemma whether to pursue with the dissemination with the public. So, of course, the decision should be on the government agency which actually commissioned us to do the study. So, we tried to ask, are we going to disseminate or not? Of course, the higher authorities would not want it disseminated. But luckily, there was a change in administration because of the delay in the dissemination of the information. Then we were able to really disseminate it, and of course, with the hope that we have really done something good, and we have tried to really improve the services of the government in that particular community.
So there's a moral obligation to, also you looked at the question of research.
Yes.
So if I have the capacity to do research as opposed to just teach, what's the moral imperative to do research? Why should I do research?
I believe that if you are a teacher, it is a moral obligation to really do research, because you cannot teach what you do not have. So whatever you discover, whatever new things you need to share with the community or with the people that you are intending to learn, no? To help learn, you cannot teach them more effectively if you do not have an update of what are the new things that they need to also know. So I believe there is the moral obligation as a teacher to really improve in the way you teach, on the kind of information that you're going to provide, because the moment you allow yourself to stagnate and not do research, then you rely on the stock knowledge that you have, which may no longer be relevant with the times.
Yep, I think so. So it's in a sense a moral imperative to do the research.
Yes.
Yeah.
And of course, you have to consider the ethical aspects of doing such. Like, for example, the responsibility of coming up with the data that you really need to be able to fill in the gap that you have seen.
Yep.
In the literature that is available.
I'd like to ask our Skype mates, do you have any comments or questions? Please make it orally so we can hear it.
Yeah, I'd like to comment, if I can.
Yes, you may, Osama.
Thanks, Joe. And thank you so much. That was a really great presentation. Good thoughts and questions kicked off in my mind as I was listening to you. So to just make it short, I'll just make maybe a short comment and maybe a question. The first question that came to mind: where do we fit the issue of forbidden knowledge that most of us young researchers, not that young, but if I was a 26-year-old biology major and I have just discovered a polymer that can break the cell walls of a bug resistant to antibiotics, like I just read today at a university lab in Melbourne, Australia, the companies, the pharmaceuticals, may not like this invention, and they might see it as threatening to their lucrative business selling antibiotics, penicillin including. So this knowledge then, the discovery of a young researcher, may actually not see the day of light, or may not be transferred into some kind of a marketed business thing, and the person may not even get a reward for it. So that's one question. How do we deal with forbidden knowledge when something established deems it as forbidden, whatever we discover? Another one is, I agree totally with you that research, everything is research basically, yeah? From the minute we come to, to society, when we enter society until the very end of our lives, we're always learning basically and doing things, deciding. We're actually doing research all the time, whether we know it or not. So the question that comes to my mind is, if we want to turn it into like something to encourage students to do is systematically, methodically, we should then basically look at incentives, rewards, even sometimes protection. People need to be really motivated to love science. I mean, I do research because I just love discovering new things. And some people are not interested. I know that. And there's nothing wrong with that. They can, go on living life according to what they've learned, and until they get sick, and then they go to the hospital and they get fixed, and then they go out and continue life. But for those of us who are interested in discovering, it's kind of nice to have some kind of a reward system, something, to recognize people for the discoveries. And the last one is data. You mentioned data. Data is extremely important. Yes, I agree with you. I'm a scientist. I collect data all day long. I organize focus groups. Today, actually, I talked to a couple of nurses I ran into in the forest. I went for a jog, and they just built the house, and we talked about all sorts of things. I was basically collecting data. However, we must know that data is nothing but a summary of part of reality that we don't understand, and we just try to make it easier for our minds to comprehend, but without killing that part of reality. I'll give you an example. I mean, when you take a butterfly and you pin it to study it, first you have to kill it, and then you study it. But then the data you collected from studying a dead butterfly may not be that good because you killed it. You need to study something while it's in motion, while it's breathing and it's alive. So much of the data we have, and the money, billions of dollars we spend, the trillions of dollars we spend, tends to be actually dead data. I mean, it's not active, dynamic, living data. It's dead data. It's data that happened yesterday. And yesterday is gone, and it's never going to come back. I mean, that's just how it is. It would be nice to think of these things when we're collecting data, and not just think that whatever data we collected means gospel truth. It's not, fortunately. It's an angle of vision, the aim of which is to make it easier for our brains to comprehend a little bit of reality, but not all of reality. So we need to continue doing it, collecting it, but it's not the last word on explaining reality. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for your comments, and I do agree with you, because in the process of doing research, we really need to look into how it can affect life, not only lives of people, but life of any part of ecology. But then, going back to the first question that you mentioned on it's actually involving competition, right? When you mentioned that how we can discuss and put into action what we have discovered, considering that it's forbidden. Now, we know that it may be forbidden, but because of some people who will forbid, but it depends on why it's forbidden, right? For example, when you mention about drugs that can counter the use of antibiotics, people have been very much reliant on antibiotics for them to be healed from whatever ailment they have. And of course, we all know that when we use antibiotics, there are also adverse effects on other parts of the body. But then, when you discover something that is new, it actually depends on how you're going to really provide enough information that would convince people that this is something that is better than the previous discovery that was done. Remember, everything evolves, no? So as you progress in this life, there is always change, and it depends on how you would like to implement such change and how you convince people to be able to make use of whatever data you have. Whether some may forbid you to provide the information to the rest of the world, but it is something that can really help more people, and if it's something that can really outperform the previous discoveries, then it has to be disseminated. So it depends on how you are able to reach out to the right recipients of such information. The second question that you have, that you mentioned, was about data gathering, no? Like you need to gather data, and in the process you may kill a life. It may not be a person's life because, of course, but then even if you talk about life of animals, insects, or whatever it is, in the process you have to know your responsibility. You may want to discover something, but there is a need for you to consider what will be the effect of the way I need to gather the information so that I will be able to prove that this is something that is more beneficial in the future. So there is responsibility that goes with any action that you take in doing research. And if you have noticed, changes happen because there is the use and interpretation of the data that you have gathered. And of course, it takes responsibility. That's why you have to find ways in order to be able to gather the data that you need as a scientist. We need to know what implications would there be after we gather the data. So before we take action, before we take our move on being able to gather the information that we need, we also have to make the proper decisions. Did I answer your questions, or did I miss something?
Oh yes, thank you very much. Thank you. And I like to even hear others comment, but thank you very much. Here.
Thank you. Are there other comments?
Are there other comments?
Mr. Carol and Ma'am Agnes, very mga contributions and adelante.
Hi, Sir Glenn.
May gabi, may buntag.
May buntag
I
din.
appreciate the study because you are mentioning about research in the basic ed.
Yes.
And many of us always associate research with higher education, considering that only the higher education is academic freedom, but in reality, as you mentioned, every day in our lives as teachers, we do research, whether we know it or not, as Osama mentioned. By just preparing our lessons every day, we do research by going through the contents of books, materials and references, and existing literature of the discipline. We are really doing research. So whether we identify ourselves as teaching faculty or research faculty, in either way, we really need to research, especially the information exclusion is and this information is just easy. So the more that the teacher is so challenged to be up to date, we understand in our time, teachers no longer the speaker. They are student-centered this time.
Yes.
The information is accessible, so it's a challenge for teachers also to be up to date. In fact, teachers, we should not stop studying because every day is an opportunity to discover new things, to expand our horizons, to enrich ourselves, to become better, not only professionally, but as a person, as we become those to our students. So all the more that we have the moral responsibility to really be up to date. So it is a past that we have to read, we have to study. One thing I have regarding also basic ed, one of the challenges in the basic, where there is less academic freedom, though actual research is now being encouraged among basic education teachers in the Philippines. One challenge, again, considering that there's no academic freedom, maybe the limit of classroom needs and challenges, because schools might impose curriculum rules on methodology, on pedagogy or approaches, or there are institutions that are very much template oriented, so strict on
Policies,
the very simple steps of things. That I see as a challenge, but I really appreciate that basic education teachers are strongly encouraged to do research, to appreciate research, to be able to improve classroom instruction and education of the young. Once again, congratulations, Ma'am Agnes. We're very proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sir Glenn. Yeah, it's really something that we need to also consider, no? Especially in basic education where policies are strictly implemented, especially in the process of teaching the children, but there is a need for them to really discover new things so that they can also share and allow appreciation among the young. Because without it, they will not also be able to appreciate what is new. Whatever is given, that is what is going to be given to the children as well. So with new discoveries in the process of management, for example, or in the classroom, teaching strategies, for example, that can really encourage children to learn new things and be able to appreciate life, then I believe that they have to also be led and guided in the process of conducting and doing researches, because in the process of disseminating particularly, people should not be misled with whatever results they may have. So it's really very important. Do we have other comments?
Okay, well, thank you very much, Agnes. A most interesting presentation.